back to another episode of The Rundown. Myself, Joe, and Brandon in the Zoom call, and we got everything that you might need for local sports, Tiger baseball, the likes. If you've been here before, you know what's up. If not, at least that's kind of like the roadmap for what we're going to be talking about today. Brandon, how are you, man?
We're doing all right. We're going a little hybrid today. As you're in the office, I'm at home, but we are rocking it as always with all of our great friends following us and our great sponsors as well with Michigan ADAS. But it's going to be a great episode. Looks like we're talking a lot of ball here on the agenda today.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I really am. And especially with CSAA season and high school seasons kind of coming to a close, we don't really have much to talk about. We kind of concluded that last week. Everett is really the only area team still going for softball. They're at MSU, I think, currently playing by the time we're talking about this, about 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And I think they're playing Buchanan for that first game in the semifinal. So hopefully they can win at that. We have not got any updates on the score or anything, but we'll for sure update you when that comes through. But we're going to be talking about that just a little bit. Lumberjack baseball, Big Rapids Rubber Ducks, as well as Tiger baseball too to close it out. So a baseball heavy episode.
Yes, it's going to be wild. And big shout out, especially for the Everett Wildcats. I mean, that team we saw with Coach Amanda Brown, fantastic a year ago. Now over to Sean Gray, and he's done a fantastic job with this same group, and they're running it back. They beat Gladstone in the quarterfinal on Tuesday, and now it's going to be playing Buchanan, and it's going to be really fun to see. And basically, when you look back at a lot of the scores, they've really only had a couple of games that have been semi-close, when St. Francis for that regional semifinal game really was one of the closest. But it's pretty incredible the work that they're doing right now, and we wish them nothing but the best because that's a local team that's just in our area, and not a lot of skill, not a lot of kids in the school overall, but they certainly do have athletes, and boy, it's fun to watch.
It absolutely is. To rattle off 7 wins like that, it's impressive. And we're in your corner, Everett. Go get it. Hopefully, you guys can pull out the win today. We're rooting for you. That's it, though, for softball. We'll kind of go now into Summer League baseball. We'll start with the Lumberjacks. They've been playing a few games. Their schedule has been released. You can see that on the WBRN side column if you want to make it out to any games. They play at the Big Rapids High School. But Brandon, they've been doing pretty solid. I believe 4-2 so far on the year. They've been playing schools around like Ottawa, Grand Rapids. They've played a few teams from Wyoming and stuff like that. So they got a pretty solid array of opponents throughout the whole area of Michigan that they've been able to go up against.
For sure. And them, especially with the Rubber Ducks that we'll mention here later on, we'll get into more full analysis over the next week, especially on next week episode. We'll have all the stats compiled from week 1 and on, which will be really good. But I mean, the Lumberjacks so far, 4-2 on the campaign. And they're playing pretty good baseball right now. And there's a lot of local names on that team. And there's a lot of really nice players that have came from our local area, especially those in the listening area. Like Noah Morgan, for example, is on that squad. They've done really good. Zaid Garrett. Those guys are really good players, and they're from the local area, so it's really fun to see them really kind of starting to flourish with this team that's right now second overall in the league, which that's super fun to see, and we just really look forward to seeing them continue to play. But had a little bit of a rough one the last go around with a little bit of a tough loss, you could say, there against a really good squad. But I think overall they're going to bounce back that one game. Leave it alone. No worries about it. They're going to bounce back in a big way. They're chasing the Grand Rapids Brewers right now, who are 8-1 with a familiar name on that team, just from up the road in Reed City by the name of Xavier Allen. So that team's also in very good hands. So looking like we're going to have two local teams in this league, Joe, in our area with local players that are going to be battling for the top. That's going to be fun to watch over the summer months.
Absolutely. They've been able to put up a pretty good amount of runs recently, especially on the ninth. They played Kalamazoo County. They were able to put up 9 and then 3. So it's kind of been in between a little bit. But again, it's just kind of getting that first start of the season. You know that, I mean, high school kind of came to a close, but high school and travel and summer ball is just a little bit different with the competition and talent. You can see with just a little bit faster pitching. So we're hoping that I can get a quick turnaround. It is kind of a shorter season. Games are only scheduled, I think, till the mid-July or end of July at the moment. So hopefully they can get a turnaround, but I think they will, especially with this upcoming weekend. They're going to be playing Ottawa County at Fruitport, I think 1 and 3 on the 15th and 16th, both days. They'll have two doubleheaders, or they'll have a doubleheader on both the 15th and 16th. If you want to make the trip down, they would love your support. Rubber Ducks, Brandon, what's going on with them?
Boy, the Rubber Ducks, they're playing some good baseball. They came off of wins on Thursday night. Coach Scarpelli's squad getting a dominant 10-4 win and then a walk-off. I believe it was a 7-6 win in an exposure tournament. Ty Gilschek Philip Wilbur, especially Caden Schuberg, a lot of those Big Rapids guys really stepped up, it sounds like, especially later in those games. But I mean, this is going to be a really fun Rubber Ducks team to really follow this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play this year, just because there's not only a lot of these local players that we're following here, but it's a lot of the players that are really great standout athletes in our community, which I think is super cool. I mean, you see a lot of these local guys, and now that they're all playing together, right, we're following a lot of them individually for their own team, right? The Ruther brothers and White Cloud, Lingaman for Central Montcalm. Obviously, you got Max Hammond and a lot of the Reed City guys when they all get on the team. So it's really fun, and I think that's really going to be a cool experience as one that has done it before with Quad City Storm when that was still really a prominent team in the area back when I played. It was really fun to be able to play against the guys in the regular season, but then in the summer, it's like, hey, those really good players, now I get to play with them on the same team. So really big wins at the exposure tournament just down south of Grand Rapids, but really looking forward to seeing how they play. I believe they have a couple games tonight, I believe, as well as on Sunday. But as well, there's a lot of local baseball going to be happening as well for those in the Big Rapids area. We got a 10U tournament over at the Rotary Park, got a 12U tournament at Vogel Fields, and then we also got a 16U tournament over at the high school. So a lot of fun games going to be played with the Rubber Ducks 16U, the Bears 14U, and both the Cardinal 12 and 10U teams. A lot of good prominent talent that'll be on display in Big Rapids. If anybody wants more information, go on to BigRapidsDailyNews.com here on Friday, or scroll down to where you see all of the Friday stories and all the dates, times, where, when, all that good stuff will be there, so you can follow along with all these teams. I'll turn them along.
We got you covered. Don't worry. And that's thanks to Brandon. I think this way, actually, on your screen. I can't remember
Somewhere
exactly which
over
one, but
somewhere.
it's anywhere, any which way. But Brandon's got you covered with that. But definitely, if you can, at least one time this summer, get out there. It's some good baseball being played. That's it, though, for kind of local stuff. Well, now it's going to be a shorter episode of the rundown. So we'll hop now into Detroit Tiger baseball. I think the big story right now is Tariq Skubal is going to be the AL MVP. Cy Young, probably, if I don't want to speak too soon, but the guy is dealing it, throwing it hard, and has just been lights out on the mound.
He really has been fantastic. And you look at Tariq Skubal, and I love especially when he was talking with Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson on their new show, Have a Seat. You can find that as well on Spotify within the Tigers podcasting network. They talked to Tariq Skubal, and one of the biggest things that really stood out was he's a very intense player on the field. But he doesn't get too emotional within his own regiment. And I think that's a super important part of the game that a lot of these youngsters can really take away. That's something that I especially took away during my years of high school, and I really tried to work on a lot of the time, was not getting too over emotional for how intensive of a competitor Tariq Skubal is. For those that watch him on the mound, you watch Bally Sports, you watch the highlights, you can see that he is dialed in. I mean, it's tunnel vision, him and the catcher's glove. There is nobody else in the batter's box. He's doing his own thing, and that's what it looks like right now. It's just blowing by guys, and he's going to be in action tonight at 8:10 when they go up against the Houston Astros. I got to shout out the Astros for not giving us the matchup that we wanted with Justin Verlander against Tariq Skubal. Shame on you, because that would have been primetime television, and everybody is mad at you as much as they are with the cheating scandal. So now, not to slander the Astros very much, but that could have been amazing if we would have been able to see that show.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they were like, yeah, let's do that, because that would have been an awesome scene. Because Verlander, obviously, every time that every time that he has to face Detroit, it's must-watch TV. Because not like there's anything bad in the water, but you just feel you just miss what we used to have back in the day. But with Tariq Skubal being there for day one, I think we're going to be doing pretty solid. The one thing, Brandon, that we just need to do is just get that offense rolling a little bit. We got it going a little bit last game with Washington able to prevent the sweep, and then the third game against Milwaukee at putting up 10. But it just seems that against some of these better teams, I could think like Texas, the Rangers with the exception, but against a lot of these better teams, we're struggling with getting the bats going, and that's just been the identity of the team so far this season.
Yeah, and I mean, right now we're actually putting quite a few runs across, but a lot of the times it's coming after we put ourselves in a hole. When you look back at some of these games over the past couple of days, you look especially at Wednesday's game, got first run in the bottom of the first, took a 1-0 lead, and then gave up 5 unearned. You just can't get yourself in that deep of a hole. Now, obviously, the comeback story would be fantastic, but this team has really kind of struggled with that. And especially you look at where they were even on Tuesday. I mean, they were in the driver's seat. They were leading 4-3 after the 5th inning. They give up a run in the 8th. or I should say, they gave up the run in the 8th and then the run in the 10th. Just going up and giving those is a really big struggle for this team. But I think the biggest thing for this team moving forward, as my alarm just sounded here on my phone, is you really have to look at where the pitching of this team is. And you're looking at a lot of the improvements, but just being able to have that reliableness out of the bullpen. Reliableness, is that a word? I don't even know. But they need
We'll
to be
make it
more
up today.
reliable.
We'll make it up today.
Yeah, they just need to be more reliable. And because we saw the talent, we saw the potential of this bullpen. And when they are clicking, it is great. But the consistency of that clicking, that reliability has really been the struggle for this team so far. But I do have to highlight as well, Justin Henry Malloy. This kid was only recalled a month, or not even a month ago, but has really kind of came out of the scene over the last month in the minors, but has only been up in the bigs for a week. And I mean, especially from last night's game, I mean, that dude came in clutch, a couple big bombs to get us some runs across the plate, 3 RBIs to give us to a 7-2 win, especially in that 5-run 8th. This offense it's starting to click a little bit with some of these younger guys, and we've seen that over the last couple of games, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these really high run total wins, and that's a really promising sign. But we got to see a more reliable bullpen if we really want to keep making that step forward, get above 500, and start getting into division contention.
Yeah, because the thing is, the big thing that we always say is it's a long season, it's 162 games, but at this point, when you kind of start to get to where you're, what are we right now, like 3 or 4 games below 500, that can easily slip and become 10, and then you're fighting before the All-Star break to get within 5 games of 500, and then all of a sudden now you're after it. You got a few more games until everybody's gonna be focusing on postseason. We're 4th in the AL Central right now, and then we're gonna be maybe 15 games back from 500. So it's just a spot now where we got to really just kick it into gear and figure it out, because Chafin was a guy who was kind of locked down at the start of the season. Our bullpen was just lights out. And then all of a sudden just kind of hit a slump, little bump in the road. So the question now is, what do we got to do to fix it? There's a lot of things that are uncertain. If you follow a lot of the Tigers fan pages and stuff, a lot of the players know that they need to get better. The fans deserve a lot better of a product than they're putting on the field. But the thing is when you're self-aware like that, that's just the first start of getting better. And I think that's the one thing that I think they know they do have to get better. And they'll put the stones in motion to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I got to give Detroit fans immense credit. I mean, I was able to go to the game last Saturday. It was a dogfight with a really good Milwaukee Brewers team that we ended up losing 5-4, despite having a 4-1 lead early on in the ball game. So, but I think when you looked at the fan base, I mean, they were in it from start to finish. Obviously, great festivities, radio affiliate day, and obviously it was Pink Out the Park Day. Really great cause to support breast cancer. The Major League Baseball's done a great job of that. But the fans have been very loyal to this team from day one. And I think that's something that you look at a lot of the other teams that might be in this kind of a boat where they're kind of around the 500 mark, or maybe even worse. I mean, you don't have to take it all the way down to White Sox Athletics level or Rockies level. Maybe you want to, but those teams are struggling putting people into the stands. And that's, I think, something that goes with the Tigers, is that they consistently have that support from the city of Detroit, which has been hugely revamped in just an immense way, whether it's the entertainment industry, the sports industry. I mean, look what Dan Campbell's done just across the street in Ford Field. That certainly brought a spark back to Motown and Woodward Avenue. But you look at where this team is, and obviously the product has got to be a little bit better. The players know that, and it's really just the consistency, because we see these spurts. I mean, where we saw the 8-run 5th inning, I believe it was a couple nights ago, just absolute fireworks in Comerica Park. Absolutely bonkers stuff. I mean, after Rogers' home run, you could have taken at some sort of a measurement of audio noise, it would have been over 100 decibels. It had to have been at that point. I mean, it was nuts, right? The fans have definitely been there for this team. We just need to see a little bit better of that consistency from the team moving forward, because we know they are a club that can compete to get into that wild card spot. Right now we're leading it, which is a good thing, but we got to get more wins in the column. Consistent bullpen pitching is going to be the answer. The batting has done a lot better of being more consistent, putting runs across, and not just one big bulky game and then drive for the next 5. They've done a great job of more consistently putting those runs across. Aggressive base running might be something I'm going to be watching, where you're watching a lot of these speedy outfielders that we have. See if we get Riley Green, see if we get Akil Baddoo when he is in the game, see if we can get these guys trying to steal some bags, and see if we can get stuff back. Obviously, kind of need Kerry Carpenter back, who he's a really good speedster. We need him off IL immediately. But for right now, this team is managing, and right now they're in a good spot, but we just need to see them get a little bit better for them to start being really in the contention of being called contenders.
Yeah, the key word there is management. You gotta kind of make the steps from going from management to momentum, and especially right now, you gotta make sure that you just don't let it slip away. I mean, I already said it. You don't want to get too far behind 500 because then you're just going to be clawing back all throughout the rest of the season, especially after the All-Star break. But we'll see how it plays out. Batting's got to pick it up a little bit. Obviously, nobody above 300 average. I think the closest right now is Matt Vierling at 267, and even then, you have Mark Canha at 243, Riley Green at 245. So that's going to take a pretty big hot streak to get that up. But I think if you can just see maybe everybody, at least 2/3 of the lineup getting hits and stuff like that each game is going to be a big thing to focus on. But a lot of people were saying that we need to fire the hitting coach. I don't know, but at this point, it just kind of seems like it because evidence is kind of clear that our batting needs a lot of help, and sometimes you got to point at the source. And I'm not saying that the pitching coach is the reason because it's the players that have to go up and do it. But when Spencer Torkelson can go from a 28 home run a year guy to all of a sudden being terrible and sent down to the minors, I mean, some type of question has to be raised when it comes to the management and the coaching staff of this team.
Yeah, I mean, you start looking at that position, that has been something that really the offense has been kind of a concern for a little while of years. Obviously, back into the pennant runs, we had a very good offense, but we also had one of the most elite pitching staffs ever created in the history of the game when it comes to some of those teams. But I think when it comes down to it, you're going to look at the numbers, right? Obviously, me and Joe will look at the numbers all day and churn through them as analysts, and you're going to see a lot of the averages. This team is getting better despite seeing a lot of those 200 type of numbers. They're going to go up. I mean, Matt Vierling has been one of the most valuable players overall on offense and defense for this team over the last couple of weeks, but you're not seeing the numbers necessarily when you look at it over the season wide. So you do have to be careful with that. But I think this team is doing a lot better. But really, it's riding on the shoulders of the starting pitching. So you look at how great Reese Olson has been. You look how really good Tariq Skubal has been, especially Jack Flaherty is a strikeout artist. We're going to see him tonight, or excuse me, tomorrow, actually, on Saturday against JV. And you can catch every Tiger game on WBRN 1460 AM and 96.5 FM on your nearest radio station. So it's going to be really fun to follow. And we're really excited to see if this team can rattle it off because I don't know about you, Joe, but seeing JV in an Astros uniform, I love the guy. But, man, I want to beat that team real bad.
Me as well. Me as well. I think we've kind of exacerbated all of our thoughts on the Tigers season so far. So we're probably going to close this episode of the rundown out. Any last kind of tidbits of information you want to toss out, Brandon, before we close it out?
Hey, travel baseball is fun. We can't wait to follow it here. And me and Joe have discussed about, I don't know about our slow pitch softball leagues and all of the minutes of fame that they want, but if you guys want us to cover it, let us know. We'll post this down if you find it on social media on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Leave us a comment. Say we want softball. We want the good stuff from slow pitch. We might get it to you. We'll get in contact and we'll cover this thing. But we got to get to the right people. But we can't wait to cover travel baseball, the Rubber Ducks, the Lumberjacks, the Bears. It's going to be really fun to follow a lot of these teams. And before you know it, Joe, I know you're as excited about this as me. I mean, it's June, but football season's going to be here before we know it. And we can't wait to preview the CSAA moving forward.
It's coming real quick. So get ready for it. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of The Rundown. We'll be back next week for even more coverage on the local sports scene, Tiger baseball, and anything else that you might want to see us from. So shoot us a message, and we'll make sure to put in this episode and description, everything like that. So get after it. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Rundown. See ya.
Peace.